Hey folks, Jack Wilkie here. Jumping on a live stream on Facebook. I was trying to go on the Focus Press page like we usually do when we do a live stream, but Facebook's not letting me do that right now, so I'm doing a live stream from my own profile. We'll share it to Focus Press later. It'll be on the Focus Press YouTube channel. And if you are on the go, you can't really listen or sit and watch it. I take the audio from these, I throw them on the Church Reset podcast feed as well, so you can listen to it in your car or while you're doing chores around the house or whatever, so be sure to subscribe and check out the Church Reset podcast feed. And as, of course, before we get started, always got to do a little bit of a plug. You Are Saved, my new book, is now out on Christian Assurance, and so thanks to everyone who has grabbed a copy of that so far, especially those who took some time to leave a review on Amazon. That's been really nice to see, been a big encouragement. So if you don't have a copy, check it out. There's a link right below there. But what I want to talk about this week and on this episode of Cultural Breakdown, I titled it Candace, Kirk, and Conspiracy Crazes, because if you haven't noticed, in the last 3 months since Charlie Kirk was shot, there's been a lot of theorizing about what happened, how that went down, who was behind it. Of course, there's been an arrest made of the alleged assassin. Seemed like a pretty solid case to me, but there is a lot of theorizing. But most notably has been Candace Owens, the conservative commentator, has every day seemed to come up with new information, new connections to who might be involved, who might be behind it all, who might have caused it and pulled the trigger and motivated it and all of those things. And with that, I see a lot of Christians following Candace Owens, just a lot of people in general. It's a very popular show. She gets a lot of interaction and reaction online when she posts these things. And the question about that is, what really should we do with information like that, with a show like that, with the kind of claims that she's making? I guess really since COVID, but even before that, conspiracy theorist and conspiracy theory were two pejorative terms. They were things used to kind of say, yeah, that person's crazy, don't listen to what they're talking about, they don't know what they're saying, things like that. I'll come right out and say it. I'm a proud wearer of the conspiracy theorist label. In fact, early 2020, I've told this story before on podcasts or whatever, but I was in a preacher group and I made a claim about COVID and some of the analysis that was coming out about it, and I was kicked out of the group for being a conspiracy theorist and told I wouldn't be allowed back in unless I apologized for lying and spreading conspiracy theories. It was a few weeks later, it was all over the news that what I had said was absolutely right. It was confirmed that, like, this is not even deniable, not even arguable at this point, but I was still not, I never received an apology. I'm still the conspiracy theorist. And so because of that, because conspiracy theory was thrown out so for really anything, you could be called a conspiracy theorist for believing anything, saying anything that went against the grain a little bit, that the term really lost its power. And so people who started questioning the narratives, people who were on the side of asking questions, we don't really care anymore. Call us conspiracy theories. But with anything, there has to be a limit. With anything, we do have to be careful about what we're saying. We need to make sure we're speaking truth. And so there is that side of it where when people say, well, trust the experts forfeited all trust years ago. The government, media, scientists, everybody, nobody is above questioning. Nobody should ever be above questioning, and I think that's a healthy thing, but it can definitely go a little too far on the other side. And so as Christians, the first thing we have to remember is there is a duty to church, a duty to the truth, to tell the truth. Of course, you can go right back to the 10 Commandments, Exodus 20, verse 16, we do not bear false witness. And so it's okay to question official narratives. I'm not ever going to come down on somebody for saying, well, I don't know if the authorities or those in power or whoever it may be are telling the truth. That's fine, but be careful about the claims you make when you're saying that. Proverbs 12:22 says that lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, and that's something we need to keep in mind with the claims that we make and say, well, there's a big difference between saying, the official story, there's some weird stuff going on there, versus Egypt, France, Israel, the FBI, the CIA, Donald Trump, all of these people were involved in the plot to kill Charlie Kirk. I mean, be very careful. The more claims you make, the more careful you have to be with the possibility of bearing false witness and having lying lips. And the other thing is, there's a need for credibility. You can lose your credibility if you make big claims and can't back them up and can't stand behind them. And so I know we might have a Candace fan or two watching this or listening to this saying, nope, she's backed up everything she said. I don't know. We'll see. We'll get to that. And I'm talking about Candace and Owens and the specific conspiracy, the Charlie Kirk investigation, I guess she's doing. But this applies to lots of things about just being careful with the kinds of things we claim, with the kinds of ideas we put out there. There's a great quote by a guy that's written some books on politics and things like that named Michael Malice, where he talks about the red pill, and that's an analogy people use from the Matrix movies about kind of waking up to see the world as it really is. And it's a good thing. Getting red-pilled is a term that people use. And so, again, when you see that, hey, I've been lied to about some things, you start questioning things. That's great, but he says you're supposed to take the red pill, not swallow the whole bottle. And what he means by that is you can get so obsessed with subverting or controverting, going against the established narratives that you're not even after truth anymore. You're just against what is being said. And that's something we do need to be careful with these things and not swing the pendulum to the other side to say, well, everything they say is true. Well, if you think everything they say is true, especially after recent years, you're probably not being honest, probably not paying attention. On the other hand, if you think everything that an expert ever says is wrong, okay, that you're probably also not really being honest. You can look at the example of healthcare. There's a lot about the healthcare industry, all the way from their nutrition advice to, pharmaceutical, all of those things. There's a lot there to question if you question every last thing and basically say, doctors have never helped anybody and don't ever talk to a doctor about anything. I'm as skeptical of them. I wouldn't say as anybody, but I'm highly skeptical of the medical system. But there's a time they get some things right, and so you don't want to do that pendulum thing, because then you end up, again, you might end up hurting yourself and making false claims and things like that. And so being careful. The other thing, there's an issue of the tabloidization of life. I think we have to be very careful about this. These are juicy stories of it's a murder that we're talking about. It's just things that are in the news, things that impacted the whole nation. Everyone was talking about that the issue with the killing of Charlie Kirk, and so that kind of gets clicks, that gets attention, and keeping that going. You see similar with the Epstein case and the Diddy case and things like that, and there's very much real stuff there that needs to be investigated, but I also think our cultural obsession with some of these things and chasing out details and, who was involved with this, that, and the other thing, we need to be careful about not getting too tabloidized with life. There's a point to which you can say, you know what I know. I don't need to sit there refreshing my feed for every next juicy detail or claim or bit of gossip to come out. That's not healthy for us. And I think there's a reason in 1 Timothy 5:13 and 2 Timothy 3:3 and in Titus 2:3. In each of those letters to those preachers, to Timothy and Titus, Paul came back around to the idea of gossip, especially with the women of the church saying, hey, teach them not to be gossip. In fact, in the latter two verses, he says malicious gossips. Women who are really stirring up strife and tearing people down because, hey, did you hear about so-and-so? Did you hear about the latest thing? That's a real thing that we can get caught up in and not really go about. We don't really have any control over this stuff anyway. When there's a new detail that comes out, there are these Egyptian planes that have been in the same places that Turning Point USA has been, okay. And so there's a bit of a soap opera, tabloid element to this that we need to be careful of not getting sucked into, because what does it do for you? Sometimes the going outside the official story is good for you, and it helps you, and it might even help your life be better. Other times, it's just sucking you into, again, juicy gossip that is not really healthy to be fixated on. And so I want to just name a few red flags when you get into this kind of thing. Again, I love questioning official narratives. I love those rabbit holes online. I really do enjoy, and I'm a big believer in a lot of things that are kind of against the established narrative. I really am. As I said earlier, I don't mind being called a conspiracy theorist, because, okay, so what? I just want to know what's going on. But a few red flags to watch out for. One, when there's a steady drip of details with no conclusion, that keeps you on the hook, and that's what keeps the clicks coming, the juiciness coming. But there's at a certain point, you got to look around and go, okay, when is the final answer going to be? And I think of the QAnon thing from a few years ago, and I mean that started in 2015, 16, and the storm was coming. 2020 when COVID, and there's a claim they locked the cities down because they're out arresting all of the politicians and celebrities who are involved in crimes, but it never comes. There's just, if you watched a TV show like Lost was a really popular one that always had these twists and these cliffhangers, like, oh man, what's going to happen? And I was dumb. I mean, I'm sure some people are a lot smarter than me. They got there before I did, but season 3 or season 4, you start to realize it's not happening. The answer's not coming. With these online kind of gossip, tabloidized news stories, if the answer hasn't come, as every day there's new receipts, every day there's new claims, every day there's new sources, just look around and see, are you actually getting somewhere with this? Part of that, and this was another thing you could see on a show like Lost, the abandoned or changed storylines when a claim is made and then later on it's kind of like, we just move on like you never said that. That's not a healthy thing. I think that's something that has happened in this Candace Owens case a couple of times, at least from my viewing from afar. The dramatization of details, I think, is something to watch out for. There's a big difference between making a drama out of something and reporting facts. And I think the dramatic, tomorrow's the big reveal. Well, if you got information, you need to put it out, things like that. And pay attention when someone's doing that to you. They might be just milking you for clicks. Another red flag to look out for. Every detail that happens or every coincidence, every question that's been unanswered is proof, whether or not it actually is. There was one, and this was really unfortunate that Erica Kirk had to go on the news and do an interview to kind of ask for all of this to stop. And one of the things was about, well, nobody knows where Charlie's grave is. Has he even been buried? What's going on with that? And I mean, come on. Is that really proof that something is amiss here? Or is it, as Mrs. Kirk said, and I have no problem believing her on this, that's the one thing their family has. And the man was shot while he was alive. What would people who hate him do to his gravestone? I mean, why do they need to publicize that for my benefit? But to a lot of people, that is proof that something strange is going on here. You need to be careful with that. And that's another red flag, is if you look around and find yourself being somebody that you don't want to be, that you're berating a widow for not telling you where her husband is buried, that's really not healthy. And I'm really kind of disappointed how many people are down that rabbit trail to the point of doing that. Again, everything is worthy of questioning, but if every question is proof that something's up and something's not right, there's a lot of moving parts here. And yeah, no, the FBI, they're not trustworthy. There's been a lot of stuff there. I get all of that, but that doesn't all put proof in another direction. Everybody has the same burden of proof, I think is a fair way to say it. Another red flag to look for is disagreement or questioning vilified. Anybody who's like, well, what about your details on that? Or you said this, what about that? Oh, that's somebody, you're part of the cover-up, aren't you? It starts to get a little cult-like. And so with something like this, I again, to go back to the top, I don't have any problem with anybody questioning an official narrative on anything, but you do have to look around every now and then and say, all right, is this going somewhere? Is this worthwhile? Is this valid? Is there a point to this? Or is this drama for the sake of drama? Is this malicious gossip? Is this just morbid curiosity, I don't know. I think we need to be careful with things like these Charlie Kirk details, like the Epstein thing of, man, don't stare into that abyss that long. Bad things come out of it. And so we need to be committed to the truth. We need to be committed to telling the truth and not lying, to just saying what we should say and not saying things that we shouldn't. And so, yeah, I think I don't have a whole lot more to add to that one. As always, if you have a comment, if you have a thought on it, again, I know a lot of folks are Candace Owens fans. I do not like the way this story has been unfolding, but I mean, if you want to convince me otherwise, but I would leave those questions there. Is this going anywhere? Is this leading you to behave in ways that you think are healthy to behave in? Things like that. Are the claims that are being made truth, or are they tenuous and, well, just I can push something out there and do the just asking question thing? I don't know that that's a great idea either if you're not actually backing up the things you say. At a certain point, there's a burden of proof when you start making claims like that. So be committed to the truth. Be committed to, just hearing out all sides of something, but also, making sure you're behaving in the way that you want to on this. So that's going to end it for this week's Cultural Breakdown. I almost said the wrong podcast name. We got a lot of irons in the fire here at Focus Press, but this week's Cultural Breakdown. Thanks for tuning in. If you watched it here on Facebook or on YouTube, wherever you're watching, be sure to hit like, and I appreciate you tuning in. Talk to you on the next one.